Hello, and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative, and very sorry for the unscheduled break. First time that's actually happened in my entire time on YouTube, so first for everything. I lost my voice. I think I found half of it. Sorry if I don't sound like myself. If you were watching the previous 4 videos that I put out before my unexpected absence, I did mention in each of those that I had pre-recorded that audio because, yeah, a non-pandemic virus got into the house. The whole family was sick and I knew I would lose my voice at some point. What I didn't anticipate when I pre-recorded 2 weeks of audio was that at the end of those 2 weeks was a holiday weekend up here in Canada, and we would all be going to the cabin along with my husband's parents and his brother's households, so 4 households all crammed together, and everybody was either sick or had been working with somebody who was sick, and yeah, turns out not all the same strain of the same virus, so we all went for a round 2. Lots of fun. Anyway, the Depp v. Heard trial has just wrapped up, but of course the media around it is not done, and even the trial is not technically done because they have to go back in front of the judge on the 24th to hear any sort of objection motions and to actually finalize that verdict, finalize the amounts that were awarded to each party. And I knew I wanted to talk about this anyway before I move on because, like, I have watched every single hour of this trial and I've got to dump my opinions. But now that one of Amber's lawyers, Elaine Brederhoff, is on the media train going off and doing interviews and saying some pretty twisted things. If I can help one person out there understand what's going on, then it'll be worth using my return after an unexpected absence to discuss a topic that may or may not be suppressible in the algorithm. I don't even know. Just so you know what I'm drawing, what you will be watching on screen, I am doing a portrait of Johnny Depp split down the middle as Captain Jack Sparrow on one side, because of course that is one of his most famous roles, and losing that contract was the catalyst for the trial that we just watched happen. And on the other half, we have Beetlejuice, because rumor is that he will be playing Beetlejuice in the new upcoming sequel. Yeah, Tim Burton is making a new Beetlejuice, and the rumor is that he has reconciled everything with Tim Burton and he will be Beetlejuice. And honestly, I'm excited. I think he will do a good job there. So, disclaimer for everything I'm about to talk about. I am not here defending Depp as a hardcore Johnny Depp fan. If I thought that Amber Heard's case was believable, if I thought that her testimony was believable, I would be here defending Amber Heard. I'm here as somebody who is a real survivor of domestic violence, and I am here as somebody who has spoken up during the Me Too movement, and I am here as somebody who has watched not only every single hour of this trial, but also all of the video depositions from this trial and all of the video depositions from the Sun trial in the UK 2 years ago. If you weren't aware, this trial, the one that took place in Fairfax County in Virginia, just wrapped up. That was 100% every second televised. It was broadcast online as a live stream, and it was free for anybody to watch. And there have been a whole bunch of YouTube channels run by lawyers that have been reacting to it, listening to it, watching it, rebroadcasting it, commentating on it. And I found one of those channels during the break because the trial went for a couple of weeks and then Judge Ascarati had a prior engagement for a week-long conference and the trial went on break. It was during that break that I found out that this had been going on. I found one of those channels where there was a panel of lawyers commentating on it. I watched all of the archives of the live streams on 2 times speed to get caught up, and then the second half of the trial I watched every hour as it happened on the same channel. If you weren't aware of that and you want to go back and watch, you can watch, well, honestly, there are so many channels to go and pick. Emily D. Baker is the big one who's actually getting interviews in the media right now. She's a good one to go and watch her archive if you want somebody who is not commentating over anybody who is speaking on the live stream. She only spoke when there was silence on the live streams. If you want a channel where there were lots of people on stream at all times, lawyers, nurses, behavioral specialists, all sorts of people, and they were kind of talking over sometimes because they were commentating and discussing. The channel I watched was Legal Bites. You can watch the archive of the full trial, or you can watch her daily recaps, which are much more bite-sized. I'll try to remember to link both of those sources down below. I actually went and I subscribed to everybody who appeared on the Legal Bites panels through the entire trial, and then some of them I've weeded back out because they're not going to be people producing content I want to watch, but most of them I am following now, and it's been really interesting. Back on track. Point being, long story short, I am somebody who is a domestic violence survivor. I am somebody who was part of the Me Too movement at its peak, and I am somebody who has actually watched this trial, watched all of the video depositions, seen all of the evidence that they had to bring to the table, listened to everybody's testimonies, and I do think that the jury was correct in awarding Johnny Depp a sweeping win on all three of his claims. And I just want to address the conflicting headlines that you will be seeing and have been seeing, and I want to address the narrative that the Heard camp is putting out that this is damaging to women and to Me Too. So let's get into it. If this is not your cup of tea, I understand. I'll see you next week. But if you're interested in this, or if you just want to hear me talk in my froggy voice because you missed me, let's dive into this. The really important part that I want to get across here is that the Heard camp is saying that this is damaging to women, and this is damaging to Me Too, and this is damaging to survivors. And the most important part to say is that if you are a survivor, you will be believed. Your story is enough. You don't have to have all sorts of recordings and evidence and everything. You don't have to have buckets of money to hire big experts. Just go report, go get your help, and you will be believed, because the truth is not complicated and real victims sound credible. What we've just seen is the abuser gaslighting the abused for a 6-week trial. Johnny Depp, by the way, is the abused in this case. This was not actually a domestic violence case. That would be a criminal case. This was a civil case. It was a defamation case. This was a case where free speech has gone too far and ventured into, you are telling a lie that is damaging to somebody else, and you're doing it with actual malice. I will address that term, actual malice, because that's getting really blown apart in the media. So Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard on her Washington Post op-ed in 2018 that made her this voice for Me Too and implied that she had survived physical and sexual violence at the hands of the partner that she had 2 years prior, without actually naming him, but everybody knows that she had divorced Johnny Depp 2 years prior and had gotten a temporary restraining order against him 2 years prior. So nice try. Amber Heard countersued also for defamation. She countersued for things that one of Depp's other lawyers, Adam Waldman, said. I believe he said them in 2020 during the UK trial. She's suing Depp for what Waldman said under the concept of agency, the fact that since Waldman was representing Depp as his lawyer, everything that he said, essentially Johnny Depp said. That is the argument. That ruling really could have gone both ways. I'm not, this video is going to be long. I'm not going to get into what I think happened with the ruling that did rule in Amber's favor on one of her 3 defamation cases. But anyway, to summarize the trial, Depp suing Heard for what Heard said in the Washington Post, Heard suing Depp for what Depp's lawyer Waldman said during the UK trial. I also want to clarify, a lot of the media is talking about the UK trial. The UK trial was Depp suing The Sun, a paper in the UK, when the paper in the UK published an op-ed speculating on why J.K. Rowling would want a wife-beater, was the term they used, in her Fantastic Beasts films. This was based on the paparazzi media attention when Heard got her temporary restraining order. The reason why this case in Virginia went forward, the reason why the UK case did not preclude this case, a couple of reasons. First of all, foreign jurisdiction with different rules. You can't just take that case. Second, Amber Heard was not a party to that case. That was Depp versus the Sun paper. Amber was just a witness. This trial is Depp versus Amber. Third, honestly, the UK is reviewing that case now because a lot of Depp's evidence wasn't brought in. A lot of Amber's was. The reason why Amber was considered credible and the reason why Depp was considered not credible, it's actually they used the same argument and found in different ways on either. Really corrupt. The son of the judge Pledge works for another paper that's owned by the same company as the Sun, and they also decided that Amber Heard must not have been up to any malice because she donated her divorce settlement, but she didn't. She pledged it. If you've seen that joke going around, Amber considers pledge and donated the same thing. The rest of the world does not. Rambling again. All right, Amber's team and now Elaine, her lawyer, going off on all of these interviews. They're saying they had mountains of evidence and nobody believed them. Well, first of all, the mountains of evidence equated to photos that were doctored selfies and photos of Johnny Depp sleeping and photos of places where supposedly damage had happened, but the damage wasn't actually captured in the photos. It was just out of frame. Just trust her. Just take her word for it. She had a whole bunch of audio recordings and 1 or 2 video recordings, all of which were recorded without Depp's permission in jurisdictions where you do need 2-party consent, so they were illegal, but the parties agreed to let them into the trial as long as it was just the 2 of their voices and nobody else. Complicated, I know. None of the recordings captured Johnny being physically or sexually violent toward Amber. They did, however, capture Amber admitting to being physically violent towards Johnny. Now, I'm not saying here that Amber was the abuser and Johnny was the victim and it didn't go either way. Very, very clearly, both of them were verbally abusive to each other, and one could argue that when Johnny goes off and slams cupboard doors or throws something, an inanimate object at another inanimate object in her presence, you could argue that that is also, to an extent, abusive. But Amber Heard redefined the context of abuse when she brought this case in her op-ed, in her testimony, with all of her witnesses, with all of her experts. They narrowed it down to Depp committing horrendous acts of physical and sexual violence against Amber. None of her evidence proves that. She has a lot of photos that have been doctored. She has a lot of photos of Johnny sleeping. She has a lot of photos of not the damaged part of the room. And she has a lot of recordings where she's the one going after him. And she's the one admitting that she punched him. And she's the one taunting him, saying, Johnny, tell the world, see if they believe you. On top of that, we have paparazzi photos from instances where the paparazzi should not have been waiting around. There's paparazzi photos of her obtaining the temporary restraining order in 2016. Courthouses are not where the paparazzi hangs around. TMZ, there was a former TMZ employee who got up on the stand and testified saying that when TMZ gets a tip off, they have to verify it. That could take anywhere from 15 minutes if the tip comes from the original source, or up to a couple of days if they have to really verify it, if they have to actually obtain any copyrights or anything like that. And this guy was saying that they wouldn't dispatch paparazzi to the courthouse unless they had a valid source saying, go to the courthouse, capture Amber Heard coming out of the courthouse, and make sure to get the bruise on the left side of her face. They got that information. The video footage that was leaked to TMZ, the video footage where Johnny's slamming cabinet doors in the kitchen, that was sent anonymously to TMZ. It was verified in 15 minutes. Remember what we said about how long it takes for things to get verified. So the TMZ guy didn't explicitly say that it came from Amber, but clearly it came from either Amber or somebody who was authorized to act on her behalf. We also have the fact that every witness to events that Amber brought and every character witness that Amber brought, they all told conflicting stories. They all somewhat corroborated the stories that she was telling, but nobody had the same details. Nobody told it in exactly the same way, and some of them just plain directly contradicted each other. And none of her former friends showed up for her in person. None of them are friends with her anymore, and all of their video depositions were used instead of live testimony because none of them were even willing to hop on a video call. The only non-expert witness who showed up for Amber Heard was her younger sister. And obviously, family members are going to be the most biased witnesses on the stand. In terms of expert witnesses, a lot of them prove themselves to be very uncredible.
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor? You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
But even the ones that were, you get them under cross-examination, and they really ended up sounding like they were Depp's witness. They really didn't do anything for her. So that's the mountain of evidence that got in. Elaine and the general pro-Heard media, they're talking about medical records that were blocked. They're talking about all of these other things that were blocked. They're talking about text messages that were blocked. They're saying suppressed. This is all evidence that was rightfully excluded from the trial. A lot of this is going to be excluded on the basis that it's hearsay. A lot of this is what they're claiming is medical records. It's all of the notes taken by the psychologist that she saw over the years. And these are just going to be notes that Amber came into the office and said this. Amber came into the office and said that. So it's Amber's words written down by somebody else and presented back as factual evidence, but it's still just what Amber's saying on the stand. It's not going to be anything different. It can't be presented as substantiating evidence because it isn't. It's just hearsay. They're choosing to say medical records instead of counselor's notes, psychologist notes, because if you haven't been watching this trial, if you don't know what was and wasn't presented, you're hearing medical evidence and you're thinking like, hospital records, emergency room visits, x-rays, that kind of thing. She doesn't have any of that. Johnny Depp does. Amber Heard doesn't. They do implore you to consider the fact that the jury was not told that Depp lost the Sun trial. They wouldn't be, because that would be giving them a legal conclusion that they're supposed to come to for themselves, and as I already mentioned, different jurisdiction, different laws. Amber wasn't a party to it. Depp's proper evidence was not brought forward. Amber's was. You will hear Elaine and Amber Heard's PR team talking about all sorts of absolutely awful sounding text messages that Depp sent about her, and admittedly, they do sound horrible. What we get from Depp's testimony and from several of his witnesses' testimony is that he likes to write in a very dark, hyperbolized manner because he is emulating Hunter S. Thompson. And they even pointed out in cross-examination when one of Amber's lawyers was examining him and reading off his text messages, like, that's a Monty Python reference, that's a this reference, that's a that reference, whatnot. But more importantly than that, most of these text messages that they're waving around is, isn't this awful, isn't this abusive, doesn't this suggest something horrible? These are not things that were said from Johnny Depp to Amber Heard. These are things that were said from Johnny Depp to Johnny Depp's friends. And like, if you've ever had a bad breakup, haven't you said a few nasty things to a friend? Like, everybody has. I'm sure if they had got Amber's text messages, there would be equally ugly things on there, but Amber didn't turn in any of her devices. Again, I am not exclusively defending Johnny Depp. I am admitting that both of them were verbally abusive, and Johnny Depp did sometimes comport himself in a way that could be abusive just by being violent in the presence of somebody else. But they're definitely running with these text messages in a way that makes them sound like things they are not. The media, and Elaine in particular, are also really going off on the definition of actual malice. The jury instructions did inform the jury to consider whether or not all of these different statements that were defamation were made with actual malice. That is a legal definition. So actual malice means not only are you aware that what you are saying is false, you are saying it knowing that you are going to cause damage. It's not the, English dictionary writing term malice. It's not the person was being nasty. The pro-Heard media, Elaine Brederhoff doing interviews now. Elaine Brederhoff in her closing argument, very, very unprofessional, are trying to change that definition of actual malice and trying to use the layman's regular English word and not the legal definition. So know that actual malice means you know what you're saying is false and you know that it will cause damage to the other person. So we mentioned Depp actually does have evidence. He actually did lose the tip of his finger. He has photos of that injury. He has the medical records of going to the hospital and receiving treatment and having surgeries for it and getting MRSA infections in that healing hand twice, getting additional surgeries on it. Fun fact that came out from the trial, not really fun, but fact from the trial, they had CGI dot markers on the big bandage on his finger while they were filming Pirates 5 so that they could give him a regular finger in post because he had this giant bandage on his hand for most of filming. Then we just have the fact that while Johnny Depp is on the stand, he's having a conversation with the lawyer who is asking him questions. He's very thoughtful about what he's going to say, and when he starts to get emotional, he is looking withdrawn, he's looking down, and this is what you expect somebody who's actually reliving a traumatic memory to look like whenever he's talking about an action and he's physically acting out that action. He's doing it from the correct perspective. He talks about, and she threw the first bottle at me and went past my ear, and he's doing the motion of his hand, the bottle passing by his head and moving his head out of the way, that kind of thing. When Amber's up on the stand and she's saying, and he was pulling my hair, she's doing the action of reaching and grabbing and pulling some imaginary person's hair. She's not grabbing her own hair and moving her own head. When she's acting out these acts that were supposedly done to her up on the stand, she's acting in the aggressor's role, not in the victim's role. When she's trying to show emotion up on the stand, first of all, not a single real tear was shed, and her acting coach, when she came on as a witness for her, said that, yeah, she cried a lot in our sessions when she was frustrated with something, and real tears are real, but when she had to act, ironically, she couldn't produce a tear. So yeah, that's out there, and we see 6 weeks of Amber not being able to produce a single real tear. We also see things like she was wiping away fake tears with her tissue, and you watch closely and you see her pause and wait for the camera flashes in the gallery. She actually posed wiping away her fake tears to make sure that the court reporters got that picture. But what's really damning about her performance on the stand is she was getting really emotional, oftentimes at the wrong parts of her testimony, but she was displaying all this emotion with her chin up and really forcing it forward and forcing it at the jury, not at the person she was talking to. And she was so intent on telling this story that sometimes she had to be interrupted because there had been an objection, or because she's just going off on a tangent and not actually answering the question. And then the question ends, or she gets an objection, and the slate wipes clean. Somebody has called cut, she drops character, blank, no emotion, light switch on and off so fast. It was, quite frankly, scary to watch. None of that was real, because when you're a real victim really going through those things, you can't just turn that off. You can't. I didn't intend to make this a long video where I actually discuss the trial, but that's why she's not credible to me. Another thing that you're going to be seeing a lot in the media and a lot in lawyer Elaine Brederhoff's interviews is they're saying, oh, the jury must have been influenced because they must have surely gone on social media, or their family members must have gone on social media and told them all about it every evening when they went home and during the week break because the jury wasn't sequestered. And what's with that? Okay, so 2 important things to talk about there. 3 important things to talk about there. First of all, what the heck? A lawyer actually accusing the jury of perjury with no evidence. Like, how unprofessional. Second, of course they weren't sequestered. Most juries in the United States are not sequestered. Not only really imposing on their human rights, but also a huge cost to the system to put them up in hotels. And for such a long trial, 6 weeks with a break in between, so essentially 7 weeks, not only to pull them away from their jobs for that long, but to actually forbid them from seeing and talking to their family for that long. Like, we don't do that in this century, except with like the most heinous, high-profile murder trials. So of course they weren't sequestered, but again, like they're harping on social media. Amber Heard's team brought social media into the courtroom. Amber Heard's team brought in a expert witness who analyzed Twitter hashtags, who told the jury that there were millions of tweets with the hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp. An expert witness who told the jury that there was also a hashtag trending on social media called Amber Turd. And when Amber got back up for rebuttal and she was being questioned about these hashtags, She got quite upset about it. She actually turned to the jury and said, "Look me up, you'll see what they're really saying." So of course they know that there's something going on social media, because Amber Heard's witnesses brought this into the court, told them exactly what's going on social media, and if they violated their order to stay off social media, it would be because Amber told them to. Besides that, the lawyers that I have been watching, a lot of them, if they were actually in the Virginia Fairfax County area, they actually went in and sat in the gallery some of those days. And so we have firsthand knowledge from lawyers who were there that this jury, they arrived, used the same parking lot as people who were there for the gallery. They used the same entrance and exit. They were in the same hallways. They used the same cafeteria, and they could see the people there in the gallery when they were sitting in the jury box. So they could hear everybody talking about the trial. They could hear everybody cheering when Johnny Depp showed up and booing when Amber Heard showed up. They could see the pro Johnny Depp t-shirts that people were wearing in the gallery. So they didn't have to go on social media to know what public opinion was on the trial. Did they consider that in their deliberations? We will never know. But if they did, well, fair game at that point. So the message that the Amber Heard team and Elaine Brederhoff are saying now, they're saying that if you are a victim of domestic violence, if you didn't record it, if you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. If you did, you are faking it somehow. If you have friends who are corroborating your story, they're in on the hoax. That is so disgusting, and that is so insulting to real survivors, because first of all, most real survivors don't document, because who would? If you're actually afraid of this person, why would you be recording them? Why would you be stopping to take pictures? Why would you be giving them a knife? By the way, I didn't mention that, but yeah, Amber Heard gifted Johnny Depp a very large knife that said "until death" on it, inscribed on it. What domestic violence victim out there gifts their abuser the knife? Amber Heard's team wants you to think that if you don't have evidence, you won't be believed. If you do have evidence, you won't be believed. If you have witnesses, you still won't be believed. We don't believe her because her mountain of evidence is a molehill of nothing, because her testimony felt uncredible, because her witnesses didn't want to come in for her, because her experts were not credible. If you are a real victim, the truth is not complicated. Your story sounds credible. Don't listen to this rhetoric. In this Depp v. Heard trial, Johnny Depp is the real victim of domestic violence, and it seems like nobody is the victim of sexual violence. So in this case, giving Depp the win, that is giving the survivor the win. That is giving the victim the win, and that is correct. And this is a huge moment, not only for real survivors, it is a huge moment for male domestic violence survivors. If you are a survivor, regardless of if you are a man or a woman or non-binary, anything else, the truth is not complicated. The truth sounds credible. This has not hurt your chances. Do not be afraid to speak up because of the mockery that Heard has made of the system. See you guys next week.